Welcome to another episode of the Starter Girlz Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Loehding, and wherever you are tuning in today, we are so glad to have you. All right, so let's open this episode up today. What does it take to lead in a space where the stakes are high, the pace is fast, and the future is constantly being rewritten? Here at Starter Girlz, we love exploring the stories of women who are not only stepping into these spaces, but owning them. And today, we're going to be peeling back the curtain on the world of venture capital and innovation, where strategy meets vision and bold choices can shape entire industries. And I believe my guest is going to be the one we're going to talk to about this today. So you guys are going to get to hear from her in just a few minutes. But before we do that, we do need to do a quick shout out for our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Productions. Need to add excitement to your YouTube videos or some expert hands for editing? Look no further. Walt Mills is the solution you've been searching for. Walt is not only your go-to guy for spicing up content, he's the force behind a thriving film production company with numerous titles in the pipeline. Always on the lookout for raw talent, Walt is eager to collaborate on film and internet productions. With a background deeply rooted in entertainment and promotion, Walt Mills leverages years of skills to give you the spotlight you deserve. Want to learn more about Walt and his work? Head on over to waltmillsproductions.net and let your content shine. All right. And with that, we do want to also make a mention to head on over to startergirlz.com. And why do you want to go over there? I tell you guys this every week because you can catch up on any episodes that you have missed. You can keep in the know so that you won't never miss another episode. But also, if you are an entrepreneur, aspiring entrepreneur, or maybe you're already rocking the scene and you want to find out what your number one success block is that may be hindering your success, well, guess what? We've got a quiz over there for you to take, and it's fun. It's a 2-minute quiz that will tell you what may be impacting your business right now. So be sure you head over to startergirlz.com and take that quiz and keep up with us. And you can sign up for our community newsletter if you want to do that as well. All right, we're ready. So my guest today, Maggie Vo, a seasoned finance expert with over a decade of experience in the public markets as the managing general partner and chief investment officer of Fuel Venture Capital. Maggie oversees investment strategy, due diligence, and valuation across a portfolio of 34 global startups. With a deep understanding of market dynamics and a passion for innovation, she's helping investors gain access to the companies building the future and making space for bold visionary leadership in finance. So Maggie, welcome to Starter Girlz. I am so excited to have you here and chat with you today.
Hi, Jennifer. Thank you for inviting me to join the Starter Girlz Podcast. It's the best way to start the week on Monday. Best way to, inspire people. I think it's setting my week for a real success here. So thank you for
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. And you know what? I always say the objective when we do these episodes is two things. Obviously, we want to inspire, and encourage people out that are listening to do great things, right? But I always have kind of a personal goal. And my goal is always to make sure that the guest has a great time when they come on the show, because I know what it's like to be on the receiving end or, on the other side of going on. And it's always great when you can walk away and say, you know what, that was like a really fun conversation. So my goal today is to hope, is for you to also have a great experience. And yeah, who knows where this is going to go. We're just going to have a great time and chat today.
Agree.
Yes. All right. So you are rocking it, girl. Went and did a little bit of research on you. And, we kind of talked a little bit before you jumped on the actual video here about how, our mission is about inspiring women. But of course, we've got people from both sides, male and females, listening to this show because we bring on so many great rock stars. And so you are definitely embodying that, as one of our many amazing people that have come on this show. But I want to back this up. I want to talk about how you got into these leading roles. Like, take us back to the beginning, how this happened for you.
Yeah, I love to share my story a little bit because I can guarantee you that it's very different from, story of a lot of people. So starting about 20 years ago, I left my country, Vietnam, where I was born and raised. It's just one day, I told my parents that, I want to leave. I want to go to the US. I think that is where I want to go to school when I want to learn and build my career. And with that, I left home when I was 17. And I came to the US as an exchange student. I went to high school in New York, and in 1 year, I have to do, which people do in 4 years in high school, just so that I can have, my high school degree. And also just so that I can get a full scholarship going to college, because I know that my parents will not be able to afford me. So imagine that, when you came to the US, when your friends around you was more like 17 years old, you like 1 years old, right? Because you
Yeah.
you don't speak the same language, you don't understand the culture, you have to make friends. So you start everything from scratch. So I'm not going to say that it's easy. It's quite challenging, but I think that it's built me for what I'm doing today. And, so I got a full scholarship at Center College in Kentucky, which you can never believe that, I'm from a city in Vietnam, like 19 million people and moving to Kentucky. I remember when I called my mom, I was like, Mom, even the taxi drivers here are white. So I'm really stand out with my accent and everything. They give me full scholarship. I pursue a double major in math and finance there. I always knows that I like numbers. I like, economics and finance investment. So after I graduate from college, I know that I want to build my career in the fund management business. So that's where I started. I worked in, the financial industry, managing, public equities, real estate and hedge fund. That's right before, I joined Field Venture Capital. That was about 2017, noticing that a lot of money moving away from the public market to the private markets, which I can go, deep into that later. But as a portfolio manager, you have to track where the money go, because that's what you manage, right? And also with my skill set, I upgrade with the CFA designation, which is called Charter Financial Analyst for the people who works in the fund management business. I know that I can add significant value to the founders if I stay in the public markets. If you pick up the phone and call any public companies, the furthest you can go is the investor relation person. You don't get to work with the founders. You can have a great idea, but people will be like, thank you very much, Maggie. So I want to go where I can create the most impact. On the other side with investors, when technology really democratized everything. You can buy Apple, at Morgan Stanley, or you can buy Apple at JP Morgan. The skill set that I have, I no longer think that I add significant value to my investor, but they want me to lead the public market, go into the private market and go early so that I can help them to be invited to the table to find the tomorrows of Uber, tomorrows of Google, and allowing them to participate in the value creation process. So that's prompted me to leave, my career in the public market and kind of expanding into the private market. And that's explain why I'm here today at Field Venture Capital. I started as an analyst, but as of today, I'm the managing directors, general partners, and also chief investment officer of Field Venture Capital, which is a global venture fund. We invest global. We have office in Miami and Silicon Valley. We serve ultra high net worth, family office, and institutional investors.
Oh, wow. What a story. Okay. I want to just back up to your story and I'm going to have you talk about because I've told you before I came on here and I'm honest about my knowledge. Like, I don't, when we talk private and public, I mean, I get the idea about that, but I don't know anything about that. Here's the funny thing. Like when you talk about math and finance, it's so funny because on that level, like the math, I could totally resonate with you because I was always a math and science student. And I actually, when I went into college, wanted to be an accountant. And so, because my mother had an accounting business when I was growing up. They were both my parents were entrepreneurs and they had an accounting company and they had an executive suite. So I thought I was going to go in to be a CPA. And then oddly enough, I got into the tax law part of it. And I was like so freaking bored that I was like, oh my gosh, I got to do something different. And the irony of that, I laugh now because clearly you're doing like you figured your thing out and like I had no idea and had to like you obviously you see I'm doing podcasting now. Like I'm a coach. I do completely different than what I studied when I went in. I had to switch mid-year, mid-year or midterm. Like you did it in a year. I did not do that. But during the middle of that, I had to switch and go into marketing. So I want to say I admire you. I want to back up to that story because you did all this very, very quickly and you were obviously excelling early on. This wasn't like you made, like you were kind of coasting and then all of a sudden you just started excelling. No, you came here and from the very beginning had your eyes set and just moved very quickly. I'm just impressed.
Well, can we just say something? It's quite
Yes.
interesting that you share your background because you'll be surprised by telling you that my family background is actually in art and music
Ah,
performance, which is opposite to your
yeah.
situation, right? So we kind of like
Yeah.
trade.
Yeah. We
uh,
did. We traded off, didn't we?
and I was just like back in the day, my mom put me in something like a performance program. So that since starting 3 years old, I always go and performs in different
Mm,
cities, different countries, dancing and singing for like 15 years. So I never
really?
think that, I would never think that I go and get a career in math, finance, venture capital. And I would think that even if today, those skill set was not really beneficial, but I actually was wrong because the fact that I went performing and living in you kind of like in a community is
Mhm.
allowing me to train my independence, right? Team building. And especially with the ability to perform on stage, it's really helping with my fundraising skill because at the end of the day, you have to stand
Yes.
on stage, you have to tell your story, you have to fundraise. So you never know. You're always being able to learn and pick up things here and there. So I'm sure that you feel the same way too. Maybe you don't
Mhm.
do the same thing
Mhm.
your family doing, but somewhere, you thinking that your mom's, your family in accounting, helping you to run a better business, even
Oh,
you
yes.
run a podcast.
Yeah.
So I just want to make a highlight on that. We never know, but that's how, life is a surprise and we just have to take whatever throwing at us.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I'm glad that you shared that because you are so right when you talk about the skills that you learned in the performing and being on stage. Because here's the thing. I think so often, and anybody listening to this, they will look at somebody and say, look at Maggie Vo. Maggie Vo is doing an incredible job in this leadership space, in finance and in this area, right? But as you said, our things are not linear in our lives, right? Like we don't have this linear progression. But if you look at all these pieces in the puzzle, you can extract all these things and you'll see how there's a piece in each of the layers that overlaps each other, right? And so I often talk about this, like I see all those years I was in Mary Kay, like think about Mary Kay, like let me say this. I don't know in all the years that I was in Mary Kay, I was ever in it because of the makeup. Let me just say that. Like I wear makeup, but I have never been a big person that's like, oh my gosh, I got to have this mascara or this lipstick. I will tell you now in my 50s, I do have certain things that I like. I do have a mascara. I do have a moisture. You know what I mean? Like I have certain things. But let's just say I'm now in my 50s before I got to that point. Here's the thing, going back, I look at this, all the skills that I learned in that company, like you, I had to get up and do presentations. I had to tell my story. I had to learn how to book. I had to learn how to sell. I had to learn how to coach. I had to learn how to recruit people, right? All of those skills have transferred into the work that I do today. So funny thing, people ask me all the time, they're like, how do you get guests on your show? Like, Maggie, I'm not gonna lie, like I have a waiting list right now. My show's booked through August right now. It's already booked, and that those shows will run us through December. That's recording. That's I will have enough to get us through December. I never run out of people to book on my show. It very seldom ever happens. And if it does, it's because I just quit responding. Like I just decided I'm not going to respond because there is always a list going. And people are like, how do you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. All those booking skills I learned in Mary Kay because I learned how to overbook myself. I learned how to make sure, one, how to make sure I have enough people in the pipeline, right? But also how to get them booked, but also to make sure that they're layered. Like I know that if I have 3 people scheduled and somebody moves, I still got 2 going through, right? And so all these little things you're talking about are so important because they help you in what you're doing. And it may just be that one thing you learned over here that you carried over. So I had no idea about that, but I think that's so awesome that you did all those things.
Thank you. And I'm honored to be on, your podcast, knowing that you have booked people throughout the years already.
I didn't mean to do that to make you bad. I didn't want I was just trying to I was
That's
trying to make a point about the booking skills, right? Like I've never had to worry about that because that's one really good skill I learned in all those 22 years I was in Mary Kay, and like I have no fear of being like, hey, like what do we got to do to get you, like I have no fear of the booking process. So it's funny how life is, right? So tell us a little bit about, you kind of mentioned a little bit about venture capital, but again, somebody listening to this, there are going to be people coming in that know exactly what you're talking about. Miss Jennifer here, it's kind of like the day I brought my tech guy on and I was honest. I said, listen, I know nothing about tech other than I can do a few things. When I was growing up, I had a little TI computer and I did a little programming stuff on there. But other than that, I knew nothing. So maybe share with our audience, because somebody listening to this may know exactly what you're talking about, what they need to know from you as far as what your company can do, what you guys represent. Maybe just kind of reiterate that for us.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with the most basic, explanation and then go a little bit deeper so that we
Sure.
can cater to, our audience.
Yep.
Funny you asked that, right? Because this morning, not this morning, sorry, over the weekend, I asked my daughter, who is 9 years old, do you know what mommy is doing? Because I think, you remember like the mother test, meaning that you can explain in one sentence or in one paragraph for your mom or your kid what you're doing. That's mean
Yep.
that you're successful, right?
Yep.
So my nephew so basically saying that, well, mommy take money from an investor, from one person, and then she go and she find the companies who like, just like Google or Airbnb or, Robinhood, but at the very, very early, nobody know how
Mm,
successful they are. Because when they was very early, it's hard for them to go and borrow from the bank. They don't have
yeah.
anything to go and borrow money. So most of those companies were built in a garage, in a dorm, or in a
Mm,
college, and they funded by venture capitalists who are mommy, right?
yeah.
And we had to identify those companies because we believe in their technology. They believe in the quality of the founders, in everything they did in the past, and making a bet on them and working with them as the partners and building the companies together. And at the end of the day, right, you cannot do that forever. She knows that at the end of the day, I have to figure out how to sell the companies because that's called monetization. I have to develop the exit plan for those companies because that's when mommy can make the money for the investor. And then, investor will take a bigger chunk and giving mommy the carry. So I'm
Got it.
pretty proud of the fact that my 9 years old daughters really understand what I'm doing, but that's exactly venture capitalists. We go out, we scour the earth. We are global funds. So we look at companies on the East Coast, on the West Coast, going down to Latin America because we have an office in Miami. So that's give us, competitive advantage. I'm from Vietnam, so I cover the Southeast Asia or Asia. So we source deal over there too. And we have, our people in Europe. So we look at deals in Europe as well. But we identify companies in certain sector that we like, fintech, marketplace, enterprise SaaS. And obviously everybody nowadays heard about the AI driven innovation. So we
Yeah.
like to look at company that leverage the AI technology to make themselves more efficiency doing things that, we were not able to do before. We invest from early stage and all the way helping the company to exit. That's pretty much.
Yeah, yeah. I love that your daughter can explain that. I think that's awesome. And I do know about the mother test that one of the tech guy that I was just talking about had referenced that in his episode as well. And so thank you for bringing that up again. It's so funny. I'd never heard, I don't know why. Maybe because I haven't been in the startup space or whatever, but I never heard that until he brought it up. And then his episode went out a few weeks ago and then you brought it up again. So clearly that is a topic that comes up in the, in that space. And so I love what you're doing, and I love that I love that you mentioned your daughter because I do think that's important. And a lot of times it's funny because I don't even know. That you brought that up. I feel like I should. My kids are all grown now; they're all adults, but I feel like I should go ask them, like, what does mom do? And I have a feeling what they're going to do is they're going to say she talks all the time on podcasts. I think that's. I have a feeling that's what they're going to say. I do more than that, Maggie, but I have a feeling that's what they're going to be like. That's what my mom does. She sits behind a microphone and talks on the podcast. So I think it's great. It's great. I would love to know because I want to talk a little bit more about you because I feel like so many people that are listening to this really they love what you guys do, but the power of stories. And I think that when people hear like the stories, they really resonate. And so I love that you shared that in the beginning, but I want to talk about you a little bit more. I'd love to know from your perspective, like what do you feel like has made let's talk about venture capital first. What do you feel like has made the company successful? Like, what do you feel like you guys are doing really well that has made y'all stand out in this space?
You mean us or you mean the company we invest?
Yeah, I would say the company, like what you're doing, your company itself, the one you're working for.
Well, I think the number ones that we're looking for before we running any check, you surprise it, but it's the quality of the founders. Right. I mentioned earlier, and you look at my story, people don't just wake up one day and become good.
Right.
They have a track
Right.
record of success. They have a track record of resilience. They have a track record of growth mindset. So I always say that when you look at the resume of a person, you can you can assess that. You can see that that person, they're moving up in the whatever they do. It doesn't have to be just academics. It can be in sport too. But
Right.
it's a growth mindset driving behind that person, making them feel resilient, because I'm going to say entrepreneurship is tough. It's not easy, right? Starting from scratch with an idea, and then you have to go and sell that idea to everyone, not
Mm,
just your customer who you're selling the product. You have to sell it to your investor who's going to back you. Why am I
right.
backing you instead of somebody else? Right? Do you have the mission, the vision that you're going to achieve? And the most important thing, as you know by now, is people, if they want to go fast, they go by themselves. But if they want to
Mm,
go far, they have to have a team. So the one you have to sell it are your team members. And if you want to
mm,
talent, I mean, talented people, they're not going to quit a very cushy job in Google, in Meta to go and join you unless you inspire them, unless you make them believe in your story. So you have to, you know, have that skill set, right? And not to mention, beside the whole skill set, which is very hard fundraising, you have to run the business, you have to understand marketing. And then if you're in the tech industry, you have to understand the tech a little bit. So you want to have people compliment you, but you still have to know a little bit because the company at a very early stage. There's no way I will invest in someone and you ask the question, he'll be like, oh, I don't know anything. Just go and ask my CFO. You need to know your company inside out. So that is something we're looking for. The first thing, because understand this, you can have not so good idea. You can have not so good product. But if you have the right person, that person understand the opportunity, will pivot fast enough and will thrive and will be able to turn the company around. If you have a good idea and you have a good product, but if you don't have the person behind that the team, that the founding team, you can drive the company in the direction that's wrong, right? So that is something I'm going to tell you, that we always go and talk to founders before we even invest. We hang out, we become friends, because another thing, venture capital investment is an 8 to 10 years relationship. It's like a
mm.
marriage. Can you even get along?
Yeah.
Be coachable enough to listening the thing that I think I add to the table, but also I have to respect your freedom for you to build your companies. Because at the end of the day, we are venture capitalists. We're not going to take over your job so that operate the company for you. So this is a very mutual respect relationship as well.
I like this. And so my takeaways from listening to you, you said so many things, but I'm hearing a lot about making sure that the team is right and making sure that it's a fit and you like the owner. I mean, I'm hearing, which I think is it really, honestly, Maggie should be right in everything we do, right? Like I feel like, back this up to my podcast, right? It's the same thing. I mean, I have to make sure that everybody that I bring on, I feel is a fit for what I'm trying to represent, right? Because like you're representing this client, you're bringing them, you're trying to help them get their product where it needs to be, right? I feel like whatever we're doing, it should be all across in every industry that we're doing, right? Because whomever we're working with is really a representation of who we are and what we want. And we want them to succeed as well, because when they succeed, we succeed, right? So I love that you're saying all of those things because I think they're so important. And it's so funny, while you were talking, I kept thinking of Zappos because when I was building out this course, having come from Mary Kay, I talk a lot about culture. And I kept thinking about Zappos. One of the owners said, if I could sit down and have a beer with you, then this is somebody we think we could have working for us, right? Because they were thinking long term, like we have to like this person. And if we can sit down and we can have a conversation with this person and we feel comfortable with them, then this is somebody that we would potentially think, hey, we want to bring them on. So
It's funny you saying earlier about the model test. I'm going to share with you another test. It's called an
yeah.
airport test.
Okay.
So if you imagine that you're stuck in the airport, I think I heard this from someone, and you're stuck in the airport because your plane is canceled or something like that, and then you run into this person. Do you think you can have a conversation with him in the next hours before you get on the screen? If you don't think you can do that, don't get on the partnership because they will bore you. They will disagree with you. You don't want to spend time with them. So don't even start. If you
Yeah.
can think that you going to be with them for.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I agree with you absolutely because it will make your environment awful if you cannot work. Right away. There's a great book. You probably read it. I love it. It's called The Five Dysfunctions of a Team. I read it when I was working in this organization. And it talks about a little different than what you're saying, but it talks about like when you have organizations and you have that one person in the organization that's really a great worker, but they're kind of a cancer within the group. And they're sort of it's like you're weighing out, do I keep this person because they're important, like you need like they can do a lot of skills and a lot of things within the company, but they're really bringing down team morale and causing a lot of chaos and energy. I'm like, no, they need to go. I don't care how great they are. I feel like you can train people. You need smarts, right? You need people to come in that are smart, but I feel like you can train people, but you can't fix bad attitudes. You can't, it's really hard to fix people that don't fit. You know what I mean? You can't change values and stuff. It's just too much work. So I'm all about finding the right group of people to work with. So I love that you're talking about that.
And I think, from the leadership perspective, right? Everybody like to hire a superstar, a smart, like
Right.
smart person. But I'm going to tell you, if you have 10 superstars, say 10 smart people in the room, you're not going to get things done, right?
No. Yeah.
Because they're also smart.
Right.
And
Right.
and fighting each other. So I
Right.
think that in the team, I always look at things more like I like to work with people complement my skill set
Yeah.
because I look at everything from the value add perspective. That's this venture capital, right? It's value creation. So if I'm good at numbers, I pay attention to numbers. If you tell me your name and tell me a numbers, let's just say a month later we see each other, I probably remember the numbers most of the
Right.
time,
Right.
right?
Yes.
So when I go and partner or find my college or my team members, I like to have someone that who, like pushing very hard on the brain, on the color of the website, because that's what I don't pay attention much.
Yes.
That make the team stronger because that thing's not falling under the cracks. Everybody will pay attention to different things. And that's going back to diversify.
Yeah.
You like to build a diversified team. When you look at few venture capital websites, you will not see a typical fund like any venture fund, meaning that, typical white male at a certain age. You will see that we have a very diversified team. You have women at the table. You have people coming from different country, different background. Because I do think that, when we come to invest in the future, you're talking about you build the future. If
Yeah.
we only have one group of representatives, you won't going to build the future just for now. If you
Right.
want to build a future for everyone, you need to have, people very different so that they think they can voice their opinions. And that's what we try to build. We selected, the people who joining our team.
Yeah, no, it's good, and I'm glad that you said that because yes, I agree with you on having a diverse team because it's like my point in here. I was telling someone, I don't know where I was having a conversation with somebody somewhere, probably like you. I have so many of them, I forget who I was telling this to, but I talk about social media because with having a podcast, obviously I have to have social media. I hate social media, Maggie. I hate dealing with it. So right? So I finally broke down and I got somebody to help me with doing the YouTube, like the SEO part, the optimization. And then I got somebody to help me with doing the Starter Girl social media, which by the way, she's doing an amazing job. Like she's conveying all the messaging that I wanted, that I would love to say and probably could say to you in words, but to put that in cute little Canva files and do verbiage on the social media, I hate it. So yes, I do think there's an importance to picking up people that can complement your skill set because going back to what you said a few minutes ago about the team, right? When you have a strong team and everybody can rely on each other and they work well together, doesn't mean everything's perfect, but you work well together overall, you can advance and have sustainability. And so you do. I love that you said that because I agree with you on that. And I think that's what's making, or one of the things that's helping you do really well is just understanding, the importance of having that diversification. You're doing it both in your numbers and in your team.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so I want to talk about you. I admit this earlier and then I got sidetracked, so I'm coming back to it because I want to talk about you again. So I want to know because somebody listening to this knows you've worked really, really hard and you talked about getting all this stuff done and having the, and having to work hard because you knew you weren't gonna have the funding, in the beginning when you were trying to get your education. Going into this space and moving up in the position that you are, what do you feel like was one thing that you had to and maybe learn to overcome, like as an individual and a leader, maybe something you had to work through to overcome to get to that next level?
Well, I think, it's always change, right? That thing never completely fix it. I do think I share my story with a lot of people because I came to the US by myself. For the past, I'm going to say the 15 years, I've always kind of feel myself as a survival because you don't really have your family, you don't really have anyone to falling back on if you fail, right?
Yeah.
And that's make me very resilient. That's make me doing whatever it takes to win. Even when you talk to me like, Maggie giving the vibe that, who if you're on her team, you're going to win. That's more survival
I
mode.
love
That's
it.
the last one standing. But she starting, grow building field venture capital. This is my firm now. The teams like I mentioned earlier, I, handpicked them. This is no longer a firm that I worked for. This is the legacy I'm building. And I even share with my partners every time I go back to Vietnam, coming back here, I always feel like, before fuel, I feel like, you have to be careful. You have to always open your eyes because you never know. You
Right.
never know. Nobody there. But with fuel, I feel like, hey, if I close my eyes a little bit, somebody going to like doing the things that I need them to do. And I can take a rest. I can take, I can rest.
Wow.
She's a great feeling when you
Yeah.
try to be survival for 15 years. So
Yeah.
now going to the next stage, I read a lot and I'm moving myself to the next stage in terms of no longer just a survival, but more like, hey, you work very hard. You try to get to where you are right now. Now you're at the position you can help people. What do you want to do? Because no longer can just be about yourself all the time. You survive. You prove that you survive here. How can you lending a hand to a person that on the path that you was before. You understand that pain exactly. And with that, so for example, in my team, I have my VP of operation. Her name is Olivia Gautry. I coach her, I train her since she started from like fresh out of college. So she's like the white paper. I'm writing her all over her. She started from an interns. Now she become a VP of operation and a partners. I recently just added a general partner who is also a female as well, because I'm advocate for the female power, the person who coming from an unprivileged background, immigrant, just like me. And recently I just recruit um, Anush, who is, from India. He works for Goldman Sachs. He also have a CFA just like me, but he did not have the visa to stay in the US. So I'm doing all the things in my firm, helping people that I understand that I was in their position before. And I'm trying, to learn those skills, the leadership, how to inspire people, how to unlock their superpower, and that's what I'm doing right now in my current stage.
I love it. I love it. Well, I think that's all about the legacy part. I think that that's what's awesome here. So you get to a space where now you can kind of give back and mentor and help other people kind of raise into that. So I love that. I love what you're doing. So I would love to know for for somebody listening to this because obviously you are very driven. And I love that you said winning. And you have one daughter or two daughters?
One
One
daughter.
daughter, okay, and I bet she's gonna be kinda got that winning mindset too, so I love that. I do wanna say something else too. I love that you talked about, the survivor and moving out of that into a different space because I think, when you're really trying to grow, you almost have to be in that kind of mindset of, this is a do or like in your mind, I don't wanna say die, but like this is a no plan B, like it's a plan A, we're doing it, we're gonna make it happen because I firmly believe that to set anything unparalleled or out there, you really have to have the conviction. You just have to make the decision and decide this is what I'm going to do, right? Like I'm just going to make it happen. I joke about this. I shouldn't even say joke, but I talk about this, like there was one year um when I was moving into leadership with Mary Kay, I think in 1 month I recruited like 11 people in 1 month, which I'm sure there are other people that do that. But I went from recruiting, really nobody, maybe one a month, and then 1 month in I think it was May of 2002, somewhere around there. My middle child was little, and I remember I was like on this whole thing. I was trying to win a car, and I was trying to get into leadership. And I just decided that month, I was like, I'm going to recruit 10 people. I just decided I was going to get 10 people on my team. I was going to find them. And I did it. And it almost became this contest. My mom, I'd call her to be like, okay, we got number 5 this month. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. I just made a decision. We're going to do it. Because when you have that conviction, you just show up differently, right? Like you just show up with that winning mindset, and everybody around you feeds off of that energy, right? So your team and the people around you become stronger too.
Well, I actually heard this from, an investor saying to me the other day, Maggie, I don't know if you're right or wrong because you talk about the future, but because you have such a high conviction, and I know that you work so hard, so I know that you will turn that conviction into reality. They say,
Yeah.
you can have a conviction, right or wrong, it's depending on how you prove it and the outcome. But if you
Yes.
show someone that you so strongly believe in something, that's one. You show them the track record that everything you did in the past, you out of nowhere, you're being dropped in America, you out of nowhere, you're being dropped in, you move to South Florida and you go into venture capital and you make everything coming to you, turn it into a success. So they look at the track record, they hear your conviction, they know your work ethic and how hustling you are. They're going to believe that you're going to turn your conviction into reality. And that's the bet they're going to make on you.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you on that. You got to make it happen. I love it. The passion, I think passion is a huge part of all of it, right? Obviously you have to do the work, but I think, when you get convinced, it goes back to that conviction, you get fired up and passionate about something. That when I used to be a marathon runner. Don't run like that anymore. I still run, but not like that. But I tell this story, and I don't know if talked about it in my book, but my husband and I, we would run. He was an endurance athlete. So we would go run these crazy races like almost every weekend. And then we would get up sometimes the next Sunday. So say Saturday, we might have done like a half marathon, or he might have went and done like a 50K or whatever. We'd get up the next Sunday and be like, we're going to go do a 5K. This is a day after we did, a big race. And I would get up that morning and I would remember being like, sometimes it didn't happen every time, but sometimes I would get up and I'd be like, I can't do this 5K. Like I can't do it. Physically, I was trained, right? Like I could do it, but mentally I was not there. So I firmly believe it is a conviction thing because I was trained to do the big and the small, right? But if I got up that morning and I was not in that mindset of I could complete this or whatever, it was a struggle, right? So I think passion is huge. You got to do the work, but passion is definitely a big.
The mindset is also important, right? If you're telling yourself that I'm not going to win,
Yeah.
you will only look for excuse that, hey, I'm not good enough. So the
Right.
mindset is always like, I was trained, I
Yep.
was ready for this, I know how to do it. It's not like I just woke up yesterday and decide to do it. That's going back to you have a conviction, but you build a
Yep.
plan for it. And the plan have to go with short term, medium term, and long term. Let's say you're in the well-being, right? If you want to lose 10 pounds in a month, you have to have
Yeah.
a plan. You cannot just
Right.
say, "And that's what I want to do." And that's just like the mindset, the branding, and everything.
Yeah. I agree with you. I agree with you. All right. So one more final question I want to ask you before we find out how to reach you. I want to know, like, what's the one thing that you do in the morning when you get up and you're like, this is my thing that I do that sets my day, gets me going. Anything particular?
So I normally like to wake up early because I don't know how people train marathon, but I train in, to be in good fit. But to me, I train my brain muscle. I
Mhm.
call it
Yeah.
brain muscle, right?
Yeah.
And when you wake up, that's when you feel very fresh. You feel like you can handle any very sophisticated thing. Um, versus when you go back home at night and you don't
Right.
feel you can read it. Like if you want to absorb everything, you have to listen to podcasts or doing something a little bit more passive, which is something that I have been practiced over the past 20 years is how to absorb information in a different way, allowing you to absorb information. Let's say you sleep 8 hours, you will be able to absorb in 16 hours, but in different bite because your brain cannot handle the same intensity
Right.
every hour. So in the morning when I wake up, I like to read things like in depth. I like to, understand about it because when I read about the news, read about, a certain thesis, I feel prepared and
Yeah.
feeling prepared to handle anything come to you during the week. is something important because we live in venture capital world, which is sometimes people say that it's a chaos world. So you need
Yeah.
to be grounded. You need to feel like you have things under control. You know what you're doing. So that's what I do in the morning.
I love it. I love this is one of my favorite questions that I ask everybody because we all have our things that we do. I have my little routine in the morning and I'm very insistent when I work with clients about, you don't have to do a lot of things, but just find that thing that you feel like is going to add value to you and set you up for the day for success. Because as you kind of alluded in there, at the end of the day, we have, in the morning, we wake up, we have all the deposits, we're ready to go, right? And then all the debits start happening. By
Yeah.
the end of the day, we're just taxed. And I always tell people it's funny, when I come in, like there's a book called The Power of When, When. It's by the sleep doctor, and you might have read it. He talks about like circadian rhythms. I talk a lot about it a lot with clients and on the show, but I'm obviously a lion. You sound like you're a lion. We get up in the morning early. We're ready to go. Breakfast is my favorite meal of the day. I get my workout done in the morning. Like I've already done my workout today. I'm ready to go. Like once I'm dressed, I'm dressed. I'm my best in the morning, but as the day goes on, right? Like I just get more exhausted. So by the end of the day, it's funny because that's when I usually get creative because I'm off a task mode now. I'm off a thinking mode, strategize mode. Now I can be in my creative zone, but it's also when I like to consume the dumbest material, like meaning like that's when I'm going to be inclined to probably open TikTok and stare at cat videos because I don't have to think in that moment, right? Like I can turn it all off and just stare. I don't do that for very long, but that's when I'm probably going to do something less taxing on my brain because by the end of the day, like you're talking, I am like done. Like, I don't want to have another conversation. I'm not signing a contract.
I hear you. I think I'm sure that we all feel that way by the end of the day, or right.
Yeah.
You feel
Yeah.
like I deserve it. You know,
That's right.
deserve to look at TikTok, to watch some
Yeah.
silly movie because my
Yeah.
brain has been working so hard for the whole weeks.
Yeah. I have a good friend that there are some people that are wolves though, Maggie. They get charged up at late at night. I had a good friend. We're still good friends. We worked together for a long time in the Mary Kay space. And we used to have this kind of thing we would do where I would text her, in the morning and she would wake up and get my text. And then I would wake up to her midnight text. So we just kind of knew this was our communication style and it worked out. So good stuff. All right, Maggie. So you have been amazing. I would love to know for our audience listening to this because there may be somebody out there right now that's like, man, I want to catch up with this girl. I want to work with her, figure out how to bring my company to whatever it is in some capacity. Where would you like us to send them?
Yeah. So, going back to what we mentioned earlier, right? Social media, uh, personal brand is very important to me, right? Because at the end of the day, in my job, I need to build a personal brand about where people can reach me, how investor can access to field venture capital, how founder can find us, so that we can provide support. That is where we invested a lot. We're very active on our LinkedIn and Instagram. So I think that will be the best channel. If you just message me on LinkedIn, it may take a little bit longer for me, but I definitely looking at your message.
Perfect. We'll make sure too that we get in there. What's the actual? I'm assuming you have a website. So what's the actual website you want us to put in there?
You mean no our website?
Yeah, the website.
Uh, Field Venture Capital. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. We'll make sure you might have said that and I might have missed it. We'll make sure we get it in the show notes so that way, if anybody's reading the actual show notes, they know where to go. Hopefully they're listening to all this, but I think sometimes people, they go through and they scan show notes too and read transcripts. So we'll make sure it's all in there. Well, Maggie, you're amazing. I admire you and congratulations on all of your success. You're doing great things in the world. And I'm sure you're raising an amazing little follower in your household right now. And we'll keep in touch with you as well. But I do want to tell you thank you for your time today and for sharing your wisdom with our audience.
Well, thank you for what you're doing right now. I think that it's great to have, person like you doing, things, sharing the story so that we can inspire people just like us. Because, believe me, when I have a problem, I only have to believe that there's a lot of people out there facing the same problem. So when we come together, it's no longer a stress, right? It's making us feel like that's just a part of the journey and we are there for each other.
Absolutely. I agree with you. You are awesome. Thank you so much. Of
All right.
course, to our audience, we want to say we appreciate you. Thank you for tuning into this episode. We hope that you found it both inspiring and informative. And of course, if you want to reach Maggie, please do that. And then on our end, you know what to do. Do all the things. Hit the subscribe, comment, like, share, so we can keep sharing all of this fabulous content with you and with everybody that comes in and listens. And as I always say, in order to live the extraordinary, you must start, and every start begins with a decision. You guys take care, be safe, be kind to one another, and we will see you next time.